Coach, you're serving on an advisory board about NIL, name, image, and likeness. This is something fairly new to college football. How do you see the positive and negatives of this issue?
For many years, there's been a perception and true that student athletes, they're not having the ability to market their name and get fair market value for what they are. That's the positive. The negative is the regulation. And when you see a rule, for example, that coaches cannot use this as an inducement, I scratch my head on that. And so is every other college coach saying, wait a minute, this is going to be a huge inducement. And everyone's starting already. Here's what's happened is this was on the forefront of every coach, every athletic director, and every student athlete. And then COVID hit. And then the social issues across our country hit. And all of a sudden, this went from the number one issue to the back burner. This is all going to take place in about 9 months. Next summer, my understanding is that in the state of Florida and several other states, they've approved this.
You know, my experience in recruiting, and I think your experience in recruiting as well because of your background, head coach at Bowling Green, head coach Utah, and then Florida, Ohio State. My experience, Indiana, Vanderbilt, LSU. It seems to me, no matter what the rules are, Coach, that the powerful teams, the brand names in college football will always have an advantage in recruiting. Does NIL change that?
I'll give you a great example. When I first went to Ohio State, remember the days of licking envelopes and sending mass mailings out? That was the way you recruited. And Clemson was the first one that really caught my eye in the recruiting game, where it was all digital, it was all social media, it was all those short videos. And I completely overhauled our recruiting staff in 2012. And we went on a mission, and that was to become the best recruiting staff in America. I hired all young people that understood the social media space, instead of the mailings, and it became all the digital short videos. And obviously our recruiting went through the ceiling, as good a recruiting as Ohio State's ever had, because we made that change. I think this is also going to be a test of creativity.
One argument I've heard that people think might be a problem, and I don't think it's a problem. I'm certainly interested in your opinion. When people say, well, someone in the locker room will be receiving large amount of money within the rules and someone will not. I never really saw the locker room that way. And I don't think it would go to that. In other words, if I'm an offensive lineman and there's a star quarterback on my team, I think the real world tells me that star quarterback very likely is worth more from a name, image, and likeness perspective. And I wouldn't hold it against him if he did, in fact, deserve and get more money. Do you think that could divide a locker room?
First of all, I hate this conversation because we're talking about a college locker room. Right. You're just talking about money, and I apologize again. I'm very old fashioned that I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to have the parent come in and see me and say, Alabama's left tackle is getting $60,000 a year and we're only getting 40. I'm not quite sure where to go with that conversation. So I do believe that's coming. I do believe there's going to be 3 issues. Number one is going to be locker room. I do believe there's going to be an issue in there. Number 2 is the recruiting, the inducement, the fact that certain schools will probably have really good NIL programs. And then think about this, Jerry. I think the mental health of a student athlete is even going to be more challenged. I've seen in the last 10 years, just their social media, the vile, nasty things that are said, and the players, so much stress. That's why kids transfer. That's why there's no such thing as a third string quarterback anymore, because there's so much pressure on these players to, at times, support their family. This is another layer that a young guy is going to have to deal with.
But you labeled yourself old-fashioned, and yet you went from licking the envelopes to digital because you knew that was the best way to recruit a young student athlete and appeal to him. So anything you've heard that has changed your mind about this conversation?
It's just a discomfort of what you just said, money in the locker room. And we've all been in those meetings with families. And first of all, I understand. You have a chance to support your family. We're all in. But I don't know if you need to support your family when you're 18, 19 years old. So I'm just, once again, I understand it. I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to say it's wrong. I'm just uncomfortable until we see how this thing actually goes.